They say power protects you, that if you build walls high enough, nothing can touch you. But Grayson Cross had learned the hard way. The higher the wall, the lonelier the view. At 39, he'd turned his pain into an empire, a network of companies spanning continents, run with the precision of a machine. Cross Enterprises was his fortress, and every rule inside it was designed to prevent one thing: weakness. He'd buried weakness once, along with a past he never spoke of. So when the new assistant contract landed on his desk that morning, he didn't even look up before saying the same words he always did. Clause 14 stays, no exceptions. His lawyer hesitated. Sir, the HR department suggested no exceptions. His voice was smooth, controlled, almost cold. Clause 14, a line buried deep in every employment contract. No personal relationships between employer and employee. Violation results in immediate termination. No one ever questioned it, not twice, because everyone knew Grayson Cross didn't do personal. From the 57th floor of his glass-walled office, he watched the city pulse beneath him. Taxis, lights, lives he'd long stopped envying. Control was his currency now, and he spent it ruthlessly. Across town, Lila Lewis was running late. Again, not because she was careless, but because life lately had stopped giving her breaks. Her apartment was small, tucked above a noisy laundromat. Her shoes were secondhand. Her dreams, quieter now than they used to be. But when she'd received the email from Cross Enterprises 2 days ago, she'd cried. Not from joy, but relief. It wasn't just a job, it was a chance. A chance to stop counting change at the grocery store. A chance to give her teenage son, Malik, something better. She'd worked hard, harder than anyone saw. As a cleaner, as an assistant, as whatever the day demanded. So when the elevator doors of Cross Enterprises opened that morning, she straightened her thrifted blazer, breathed once, and whispered to herself, "You belong here, Lila. Just act like an elevator mirror." She straightens her blazer, then notices Clause 14 printed on the contract in her hand. She flips it over. Blank. "Good," she mutters. "Means I get to write the rules." The lobby was a cathedral of glass and steel. Quiet, too quiet. Receptionists looked like they'd stepped out of a magazine. Everyone moved like they had somewhere more important to be. She smiled anyway, polite but firm, as she approached the front desk. "Good morning. I'm Lila Lewis. I have an appointment with Mr. Cross." The receptionist blinked, checked her tablet, and nodded. "Top floor. He's expecting you." Lila thanked her and stepped into the elevator. Each floor that passed felt like another breath she couldn't quite catch. By floor 57, her hands trembled. By the time the doors opened, she'd composed herself again. The office was silent. Not the quiet of peace, the quiet of control. Grayson didn't look up when she entered. "You're late," he said. She glanced at the clock. 9:01. "By 1 minute," she replied. "Then we're already behind." His tone was like a locked door. He finally looked at her, and something flickered in his expression. Not admiration, not attraction. Recognition, maybe. The kind you feel when you see someone who's walked through fire before. But it passed. He extended a file across the desk. "Your duties are outlined here. You'll report directly to me. My schedule is law. My time, non-negotiable. Understood?" "Understood," she said, her voice even. "Good. Sign this." He handed her the contract. She skimmed it, her brow furrowing slightly. Clause 14. No personal relationships with Mr. Cross? "It's standard procedure," he said, eyes already back on his screen. "Sounds lonely." The words slipped out before she could stop them. For a fraction of a second, Grayson froze. His jaw tightened. Not in anger, but defense. "Loneliness," he said finally, "is a choice. Distraction is a liability." "I see," Lila replied. "Then I'll make sure I don't distract you, Mr. Cross." She signed. He didn't thank her. He simply nodded toward the adjoining office. "That'll be your space." Get started. For the rest of the day, Lila worked quietly. Emails, scheduling, coordinating meetings with people whose titles sounded like currencies. Grayson barely spoke. When he did, his instructions were precise, but never kind. He corrected her tone once, her phrasing another time. But what struck her wasn't his arrogance. It was his emptiness. This man, whose name carried weight in boardrooms across the globe, seemed like someone who'd stopped feeling years ago. At lunch, she noticed he didn't eat. Just drank black coffee, staring out at the skyline as if it owed him an apology. The city's neon bled across the glass. By evening, Lila was packing up when the phone on her desk rang. "Lewis," his voice came through. "Cancel my 7 o'clock dinner with the investors. Reschedule for next week." "Understood. Should I?" "And Ms. Lewis?" "Yes, sir?" "Bring the quarterly report into the conference room." She hesitated. Now. Now. When she entered the room, he was standing by the window, city lights flickering across his suit. "I want your opinion," he said without looking at her. "My opinion?" "You've reviewed the file. Tell me what you see." She hesitated again. No one asked assistants for opinions? Not here. But she'd spent all day reading those numbers, tracing patterns. So she spoke. "You're losing retention in the tech division. The problem isn't the product, it's morale. They're overworked. The company's scaling too fast." He turned slowly. "And what do you suggest?" "Hire smarter. Pay better. Replace fear with loyalty." It was bold. Too bold. But she didn't take it back. He stared at her for a long moment. Unreadable. Then for the first time all day, a hint of something human crossed his face. "You've been here 6 hours," he said, "and you think you understand my company?" "No," she said calmly, "but I understand people." "You're bold," he said quietly. "I'm honest. That can be dangerous here." "So can silence," as she replied. That day, for the first time, Grayson didn't correct her tone. Later that week, she'd slipped a memo under his office door, a quiet note about irregular transfers in the tech division's offshore accounts. He'd skimmed it, dismissed it as routine, and filed it away. She hadn't pushed. Not yet. As the weeks passed, Lila proved something Grayson hadn't expected: competence without fear. She spoke directly, moved efficiently, and when others whispered behind her back, she ignored them. Rumors, of course, spread fast in skyscrapers. The new assistant who talked to the boss like they were equals. The woman who didn't flinch when he glared. But what those whispers missed was why he let her. Because she got things done. The board noticed it first. Grayson's schedule smoother, operations cleaner, decisions faster. He didn't credit her publicly. He never did. But privately, he began trusting her judgment. One afternoon, he handed her a file. Something confidential. "This is for the summit in Dubai. I need you to coordinate logistics. Discretion is key." "Of course," she said, but as she walked away, he added quietly, "And Lila?" She stopped. "You've earned this. Don't make me regret it." There was no warmth in his voice, but there was respect. And for Grayson Cross, that was almost the same thing. It was a Thursday when everything cracked. The company had just faced a PR disaster, a leak from an internal partner. Tensions were high, phones ringing nonstop. Grayson's composure held, but barely. He barked orders, cut deals, pulled strings, until a junior executive made the mistake of blaming Lila for a scheduling mix-up. Grayson heard it from across the hall. "Maybe she's too new to handle this pace," the exec muttered. Lila didn't respond, just straightened her papers, calm. But Grayson stepped out of his office, his tone quiet but lethal. "Is that how we handle accountability here, Mr. Reese?" The room froze. "Because last I checked," Grayson continued, "Ms. Lewis works harder than anyone on this floor. If you can't match her discipline, you're in the wrong company." Mr. Reese stammered, muttered something, and disappeared. Grayson turned back to Lila. "You all right?" She blinked, surprised. "Yes, just didn't expect you to step in." He gave a dry half smile. "I don't tolerate incompetence or cowardice." "Thank you," she said softly. "Don't thank me. Just keep doing your job always." And she did. But something in their rhythm shifted after that day. Grayson began noticing things, small things, The way she organized his desk differently. Efficient, minimal, precise. The way her reports didn't just answer his questions, they asked better ones. The way she could anticipate his needs without him saying a word. She wasn't just an assistant anymore. She was becoming his balance. And for a man who didn't believe in trust, that was dangerous. The office lights dimmed floor by floor. That Friday, as the office cleared out for the weekend, Lila lingered. She was gathering files when Grayson spoke. "Miss Lewis." "Yes, sir?" "Why are you still here?" "Because someone has to make sure you don't drown in your own work," she said lightly. He raised an eyebrow. "That's not in your job description." "Neither was saving you $500,000, she replied. A beat of silence, and then, unexpectedly, he laughed. Not a cold, polite chuckle, a real one, short, rough, but human. "Touché," he said. For a moment, Lila just watched him. This man who'd built a world so tight he could barely breathe in it. And though she didn't say it aloud, she thought, maybe the walls weren't built to keep others out. Maybe they were built to keep his pain in. That night, long after the office emptied, Grayson sat alone. On his desk, beside the closed contract, lay a photo. One he never showed anyone. A woman smiling, sunlight in her hair. The photo was creased down the middle. The only crack he'd never fixed. The only person he'd ever broken his own rule for, and the reason the rule existed. He closed the photo gently, almost reverently, then slid it back into the drawer. Control. It was all he had left, and he wasn't about to lose it again. Meanwhile, Lila waited in the lobby for her bus, watching the city, thinking about the man upstairs. He was brilliant, yes, but broken too. And though she didn't know it yet, this job, this man, would test everything she thought she knew about control, loyalty, and love. If you're enjoying the story so far, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. Because in this city, rules protect people like Grayson Cross until someone brave enough decides to break them. The next day began like every other. At least that's how Grayson Cross intended it to. Meetings, signatures, numbers that never lied. A world where every decision was precise, every conversation predictable. Until Lila walked into his office holding a folder, uninvited. "Sir, you might want to look at this." He looked up, his patience already thinning. "That's not how we handle protocol, Ms. Lewis." "Maybe not, but your head of finance just approved a supplier contract that's bleeding you $500,000 a month." She set the document down, pages open, figures highlighted. Grayson's brow furrowed. He scanned, then looked at her again, this time properly. "How did you catch this?" "Because I read everything you sent me last night." Twice a pause. "You were supposed to leave at 6. "I did," she said, then shrugged lightly. "But I took the reports home." He blinked, unsure whether to be annoyed or impressed. "You're not paid to fix my company, Ms. Lewis." "Maybe not," she replied, meeting his gaze. "But I don't like watching people waste potential, including you." There it was again, that spark of honesty, dangerous and refreshing. He leaned back, studying her like an equation he couldn't solve. For years, people had treated him like power, not a person. She treated him like neither. Just a man with flaws, and a company that could do better. Grayson Cross had built his life around rules. Rules made men predictable. Predictable men made profitable companies. But lately someone had started rewriting his logic. Lila Lewis. It began quietly, her voice in boardrooms, her questions after meetings, the way she listened when everyone else was rehearsing what to say next. He'd told himself it was respect, nothing more. Respect for competence, intelligence, focus. But respect doesn't keep you awake at 2 a.m. replaying a conversation. The summit in Dubai arrived faster than expected. Grayson's jet was ready, his security briefed. And as always, Lila's efficiency was flawless. Until she wasn't. A mistake, small, but in Grayson's world, catastrophic. A misfiled document led to a contract clause being misread by a foreign investor. Millions were at risk. The board erupted. A public embarrassment. And Grayson's name, not hers, was on the dotted line. He stood by the glass conference wall, arms folded, silence slicing through the room like ice. Who was responsible? One director asked sharply. Lila stepped forward before anyone else could speak. I was. Gasps. Grayson turned slowly, his expression unreadable. Ms. Lewis, he said at last, voice even, step into my office. The door shut behind them. Silence. Grayson didn't shout. He never did. His anger was quieter than thunder, more dangerous. You do realize what that mistake cost? Yes. Do you understand what it means for this company's reputation? Yes. Then tell me why you made it. Lila met his gaze. Because I was exhausted. Because I haven't taken a single day off since I started. Because I wanted to make sure everything was perfect. And I failed. He studied her, searching for arrogance, for excuses. There were none. Only honesty and a kind of exhaustion he knew too well. He turned away, voice low. Do you know why I wrote that rule in my contract, Ms. Lewis? No love, no attachment, she said quietly. Yes, I've read it. I just never understood it. He faced her again, his eyes sharper now. Because emotion clouds judgment. It weakens leaders. I built this empire on discipline, not empathy. And yet empathy's what keeps your people loyal, she replied. His jaw tensed. You think I built loyalty with kindness? No, she said softly. You built fear. That's not the same thing fear signs NDAs. Loyalty signs lives. The silence after that was heavy, almost intimate. For the first time, Grayson didn't have a counter-argument. He just looked at her. This woman who had every reason to break down, but didn't. Instead, she stood there proud, steady, unafraid of his power. You're dismissed, he said finally, voice softer than before. Is that an order, she asked, or mercy? He didn't answer. When she left, he sat alone for a long time, staring at the contract he'd written years ago. No emotional relationships with any employee. No exceptions. But what happens when the rule itself becomes the problem? The story should have ended there. But the next day, an email hit every inbox in the company. An anonymous message. Screenshots of Lila's internal communications with Grayson. Private, clipped exchanges. Professional on the surface, but easily twisted. The subject line read, "The assistant who got too close." Within hours, gossip spread like wildfire. The whispers she'd once ignored now hissed openly in corridors. Grayson saw the way she carried herself. Back straight, expression neutral. But he also saw the tremor in her hands. He wanted to fix it, but doing so publicly would only make things worse. So he called her in. Close the door. She did. I'm investigating the leak, he said. You'll be cleared. It's not about being cleared, she replied. It's about how quickly they believed it. People always believe the worst, Grayson said. Then maybe they learned it from their boss. That one hit. He looked at her for a long moment, the weight of unspoken truths between them. You shouldn't talk to me like that. Maybe, but I won't apologize for being human. Something in his chest shifted, the faintest crack in the ice. You're too brave for your own good, he said. No, she murmured, just tired of surviving quietly. He exhaled slowly, fingers pressing against his temple. Take a few days off. If I do, they'll think you're protecting me. Let them. And if that's exactly what the story becomes? He didn't answer, because he already knew. It was too late. The story had already become that. Later that night, Grayson found himself alone again. Only this time he didn't stare out at the skyline. He stared at the framed copy of his original company charter. The document he'd written a decade ago in his father's memory. Every word of it, cold, perfect, unfeeling. He thought of Lila's voice. You built fear. That's not the same thing. He hated that she was right. So he did something he hadn't done in years. He called someone. His lawyer, Mason Hale. Mason, I need a clause reviewed. Which one? The contract. The one about personal relations. A pause. You want to amend it? Mason asked, incredulous. Just look at it. But when he hung up, Grayson didn't feel relief. He felt exposed, because he knew exactly why he was changing it. And that realization terrified him more than any merger ever had. When Lila returned 2 days later, something had changed. The stares had softened. The whispers died down. She walked to her desk and found an envelope. No sender, just her name. Inside was a single page. Clause 14 torn from her original contract. Red ink, now a heart drawn around the crossed-out line. And under it, handwritten in Grayson's unmistakable scrawl, "Rules evolve." She looked up. Across the room through the glass walls, Grayson was watching her. Neither smiled. Neither moved. But in that silence, something real passed between them. Something that couldn't be written or erased. Then suddenly, a knock. Security entered. "Sir," one guard said, glancing nervously toward Grayson, "we have a problem. The press just leaked an internal memo. Someone's accusing you of falsifying audit records." Lila froze. Grayson's expression didn't change, but his jaw set like steel. "Who leaked it?" "We think someone from inside." Grayson's eyes flicked to Lila, not in blame, but in realization, because he knew who it was, and she did too. The same executive he'd humiliated. Reese, and he wasn't done yet. The scandal broke like a slow poison. Quiet at first, then everywhere. By morning, Grayson's name was plastered across every finance feed, his company under investigation for falsified audit records. Headlines didn't ask for proof, they asked for blood. And in the absence of truth, rumor filled the void. Sirens wailed 3 blocks down, then silence. Grayson Cross didn't come to the office that day. For the first time in 15 years, his seat at the head of the boardroom table sat empty. Instead, he sat in his penthouse. Blinds half drawn, tie loosened, phone buzzing nonstop. Messages from investors, lawyers, journalists. He ignored them all. On the table in front of him lay a single folder, the one marked Internal Audit 2021. He flipped through it, eyes scanning signatures. Everything was legitimate, every number real. So why did it feel like he was losing everything anyway? Because perception, he realized, was stronger than truth. And someone, Reese, had learned that faster than he did. Lila hadn't slept. Her phone, too, was full. Messages from coworkers, friends, even strangers. "Are you okay? Is it true? You should resign before they drag you down with him." She sat by the window, clutching a cup of coffee gone cold. The world outside was still moving. Taxis, lights, people who didn't know her story. Didn't know how hard she'd worked just to exist in rooms that were never built for her. Now all they saw was a scandal, a black woman, too close to power. Easy to blame, easy to erase. She closed her eyes, and for the first time since she'd started working for Grayson Cross, she felt small again. By the third day, the board convened an emergency meeting. Without him. They called it precautionary. He knew better. It was mutiny. Grayson walked in halfway through, silent, composed, as whispers fell like dominoes around him. "Mr. Cross," said the chairman, "given the gravity of these allegations, we believe a temporary leave—" "Denied," Grayson said, sliding the audit proof forward. "And while we're cleaning house, Reese, you're next. It's not a request. Neither is my position." He laid a document on the table, proof of compliance, signed by the auditing firm. But it didn't matter. In corporate warfare, truth wasn't defense. It was weakness. Then the chairman cleared his throat. "This isn't only about the audits. It's about perception, your relationship with your assistant." A ripple of silence followed. Grayson's expression didn't move. "There is no relationship. Then why was Clause 14 removed from the employee code under your authorization?" He froze. Across the room, Reese smiled. "Maybe because rules evolve," he said softly. The words, her words, hit him like a blade. She'd come to clear her desk, nothing more. The security guard hesitated before letting her through. "Orders from above," he said quietly. "They're saying you're part of the leak." "That's a lie," she said, her voice shaking. "I know," he whispered, "but lies spread faster than truth in this place." She walked through the halls that once buzzed with her footsteps. Now they echoed, empty, watching. When she reached her office, the door was already unlocked. her things stacked in a cardboard box, and on the desk a sealed envelope. No name, just the company's emblem. She opened it. Effective immediately, Lila Lewis is suspended pending internal review. She stood still for a long time, eyes blurring. Then she turned and found Grayson standing in the doorway. "You knew," she said. He didn't answer. "You knew they were going to do this." "It's temporary," he said carefully. "Just until you what? Until you save your company or yourself?" "Lila, don't." Her voice cracked, quiet but sharp. "You told me rules evolve. You made me believe I wasn't invisible here. And now," she laughed bitterly, "now I'm a headline." He stepped closer. "I'm fixing it. I promise. You can't fix perception, remember? You said it yourself." She moved past him, box in hand. He reached out, his hand almost on her arm, then stopped himself. Because the last rule he'd built his life around was screaming in his head. No emotion, no weakness, and breaking it now would destroy them both. Lila walked out of Cross Enterprises without looking back, and for the first time since Grayson had met her, he didn't know what to do. He'd faced billion-dollar crises before, mergers, lawsuits, takeovers. But this, losing her, felt like the one problem he couldn't negotiate out of. Because somewhere between rules and reality, he'd started needing her honesty more than his order. That night, he returned to his office one last time. The building was dark, silent, the city's hum muffled by the weight of everything collapsing. He poured himself a drink and stared out the window, watching the reflection of his own downfall. Then the door opened. He didn't turn around. "I thought security revoked my access." "They did," said a familiar voice. "I have mine." He spun. It was Marcus Vale, his CFO, the man he'd trusted most, the same man who'd quietly mentored Reese, the same man who'd smiled when Reese took the fall for the leak. Grayson's heart sank. "It was you," Marcus smiled faintly. "You were so obsessed with control, Grayson. You didn't even notice when I took it from you." Grayson lunged forward. "You used her." "I used both of you," Marcus said coolly. "She was loyal to you. That made her predictable. You'd protect her at any cost, which meant when the evidence surfaced, you'd take the fall before she did." "Why?" Grayson's voice broke. "You already had everything." Marcus laughed softly. "You froze the board's equity for 5 years to fund your legacy buyout. I cashed out early. In your name. By the time they noticed, you'd be the only one left to blame." He took a step closer, his smirk fading. "But you made it easy. You wrote your own death sentence the day you made feelings illegal." Grayson clenched his fists. "I'll expose you." Marcus shrugged. "You won't have the chance." He held up a small flash drive. "This contains your confession, or at least an edited version of it, scheduled to release in 24 hours. By the time the truth catches up, your name will be poison." Grayson's pulse pounded. "You won't get away with this." Marcus smiled. "I already have." He turned to leave, but paused at the door. "For what it's worth, she was the only variable I didn't calculate. She really cared for you. Shame you couldn't see it until it was too late." And then he was gone. Grayson stood frozen, the rain beginning to drum against the glass again. His reflection looked back, tired, broken, human. For the first time, he whispered the truth aloud. "I broke the rule first, not her." The next morning, Lila woke to a knock at her door. A Polaroid had been slid under it. Grayson bloodied, holding the USB like a grenade. "Back. Play me. Then burn this." She stared at it, confused, before plugging the USB into her laptop. A video appeared. Grayson, disheveled, bleeding at the lip, sitting in his office under flickering lights. "If you're watching this," his voice trembled, "then I've probably failed." Marcus Vale framed both of us. He used my name, my systems, and your loyalty. But I won't let him rewrite the story. I'm taking everything to the board tonight. If I don't make it out— The video cut out abruptly. Lila's hands shook. "Oh my God!" She grabbed her coat and ran. Lightning cracked the skyline in half as she reached the tower. Police lights flashing, people crowding the entrance. An officer held her back. "Ma'am, building's off limits." But through the chaos, she saw him, Grayson, being led away in handcuffs, drenched in rain, eyes hollow but alive, their gazes locked across the flashing lights. He didn't look like a billionaire anymore. He looked like a man stripped to truth. And for the first time, she realized the rule was never about protecting the company. It was about protecting himself from ever feeling this much again. As the crowd swallowed him, Lila whispered to herself, her voice trembling between rage and heartbreak. "You wanted a world without love, Grayson, and look what it cost you." The screen fades to black. 3 months had passed since Grayson Cross was arrested, and his name had become legend and warning in equal measure. The government seized his assets. The board dissolved. But as investigations unfolded, so did the truth. Marcus Vale's schemes surfaced. Shell accounts, falsified records, buried files signed with digital forgeries. Every accusation Lila had whispered was proven right. Every lie Grayson had been blamed for unraveled line by line. The story flipped overnight. Now the headlines read, "Cross exonerated." Vale missing whistleblower Lila Lewis credited for exposing corporate conspiracy. Yet both of them were ghosts of who they'd been. Grayson stepped out of the courthouse, a free man, the city's noise washing over him like distant thunder. No cameras chased him now, no cheers, just quiet. The kind of quiet he used to crave but now couldn't stand. He didn't go back to his penthouse. He sold it. He didn't reopen the company. He dissolved it. For the first time in his life, Grayson Cross had no plan, no structure, no rule book. And strangely, he felt alive. Across town, Lila sat in a small cafe by the window, working for a non-profit that helped whistleblowers find protection. She'd turned down every interview, every offer to tell her side. She didn't want fame. She just wanted peace. But peace was a fragile thing, because every morning she found herself glancing at the door, half expecting him to walk in. It was a Thursday when he did. No cameras, no entourage, just Grayson. Hair a little longer, suit replaced with a dark coat, eyes softer but shadowed. He stood there silent until she finally looked up. Their gazes met. For a second, neither spoke. Then he said quietly, "You look different." "So do you," she replied. He smiled faintly. "Less invincible?" She didn't smile back. "More human." He sat across from her, rain tapping on the glass between their words. "I didn't come here to ask for forgiveness," he said. "Good," she answered, though her voice trembled slightly, "because I'm not sure I have any left." He nodded slowly. "You shouldn't. I was wrong about everything, about control, about trust, about you silence again, the kind that carried every unspoken thing they'd ever felt." Finally, she whispered, "You made a contract that said no love." "I did," he admitted, "because I thought love was chaos, that it made people weak. And now?" He looked up, eyes raw. "Now I know it's the only thing that ever made me strong." A beat passed. Then she asked, "What happens next?" Grayson exhaled. "I've been asked to rebuild, to start a new firm, under federal oversight. But I won't do it without you." Lila blinked. "You want me to work for you again?" "No," he said softly. "With me. As an equal. No contracts, no rules." She hesitated. "You really think the world will trust you again?" He smiled sadly. "Doesn't matter if it does. I'm not doing it for them anymore." Lila looked at him for a long time, searching for the man she used to know. The one who hid behind power and perfection. He was still there, but changed, fragile, humbled, real. Finally, she said, "You always loved building things." He nodded. "Maybe this time, I'll build something that can't collapse when the truth hits it." She reached for her coffee, hiding the small smile tugging at her lips. "Then maybe," she said, "we should start with something simple." "Like what?" "Like trust." He laughed quietly, the sound unfamiliar but honest. "I can sign that contract." She looked up. "No contracts, remember?" "Right," he said. "Then maybe just a promise." Their eyes met again, not with old pain, but with the kind of understanding that's born from surviving together instead of apart. Outside, the rain finally stopped. The city lights flickered like they were catching their breath. He slid the same photo across the table, crease now taped. Fixed it. A new building stood where Cross Enterprises once towered a year later. Smaller, quieter, and different. Its nameplate read, The Lewis Foundation. Inside, Lila stood by the glass wall, watching the city glow beneath her. Behind her, Grayson finished a call and set down his phone. He walked to her side. "The world thinks this is yours," he said. "It is," she replied. "You just helped me build it." He nodded, smiling. "Fair enough." They stood in silence for a long time, watching the skyline together. Then Lila whispered, "You rewrote the rule." Grayson turned to her. "No, you broke it first. I just learned how to live without it." The city hums. The world moves on. But somewhere in that quiet space between ruin and redemption, two people who were never supposed to love finally did. Clause 14 is dead. Long live trust. Funny thing about rules, they're made to keep people safe until they start keeping them lonely. Grayson thought control could save him. Lila thought truth could. But in the end, it wasn't power, money, or revenge that rewrote their story. It was the one thing they were both afraid to say out loud. If you've ever walked away from someone because you thought it was the right thing to do, maybe this story hit closer than you wanted it to. Don't just click away, stay. There are more stories waiting to remind you why rules are meant to be broken. Click subscribe, because the next one might just be yours.